Estate planning, it can be a touchy topic and isn't necessarily anyone's favorite conversation to have, but as thoughts turn to taxes this month, maybe now is the time to be planning ahead with your estate. Here with some advice is Jim Yeh, financial educator, founder of retirehappy.ca. Welcome back, Jim. Always nice to have you here.
Always nice to be here.
Wow, what a topic. Some of the biggest fears and mistakes people have around estate planning. Let's start with that.
I think the biggest fear is just they don't know where to start. I mean, it's such a big topic. I think people think it's really complicated. I don't know what to do. And so procrastination just seems to be the biggest, where do I go with this thing, you know? And so that's clearly the thing that stops people from moving and advancing.
Yeah, overwhelming and just kind of, oh, I'll put that off.
For sure.
Also scared about making big tax mistakes that they won't be around to correct as well. How warranted are those fears?
Yeah, you know, we all have this common enemy, right? We hate paying taxes, we hate the government, and you hear that a lot in Alberta these days. But, you know, so there is an element where good estate planning will minimize taxes. But, you know, in my years of experience, you know, I tell people this all the time: don't let just taxes drive your decision. Don't be it your key motivator, because when I look at estate planning and what's happened over the years, the most unfortunate circumstances is not when they pay big tax bills, it's when families don't get along. It's when there's fights over really stupid things, and a lot of this can be prevented with some good planning. So I think that the key to estate planning is to think about family, think about harmony, think about people that are going to be affected by your estate, and how you're going to make sure that your wishes are not only carried out, but that you have others in mind. So I call it kind of unselfish, you know, and just like with, you know, retirement, there's more to retirement than just money. Certainly with estate planning, it's the same thing. There's more to taxes and saving taxes than just, you know, focusing on the dollar.
Yeah, just following your heart and keep the love factor into it.
It's really important, I think, you know, just it's so sad when, you know, people are fighting over a little possession, or the thought of inequity or unfairness comes out, and I want this, I want that, you deserve too much, I deserve more, you know, those kinds of things are really, they create just lifelong problems within families. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
So then with your planning, how careful do you need to be about beneficiaries and who you choose and all that?
Well, that's the starting place. So if you want to start somewhere, to keep it simple, estate planning is about establishing your base of beneficiaries. The easiest way to do that is to have a will. We've heard this many times, right? And so start with the will. But, you know, some of the other places to think about that are really easy starting points is, you know, at the workplace, you're going to have usually some life insurance through work. You're going to have your RSPs or your pensions. Just make sure that those designations are up to speed. We're working on a case right now where, you know, somebody passed away. Their ex-wife was still listed as the beneficiary. He's already remarried, and so you know, just simple things like updating those beneficiaries is really key to estate planning, for sure.
And how do you minimize the tax bill at death for your beneficiaries? Like, what's the biggest trigger at death?
So, yeah, so when someone dies, there has to be a final tax return done. There's no tax on assets, but there is a final income tax. And the biggest bill usually comes from the RSPs. It's not the only bill, but when you die, the RSPs, everything comes into income. And so that's usually the biggest trigger and the biggest thing people complain about. So when it comes to RSPs, you know, designate the right beneficiary. If you have a spouse, there's a lot of rollover provisions. If you have dependent children, there's some ways to minimize tax that way. But if you list anybody else, friends, families, siblings, parents, there's going to be tax. You can also list a charity, which will reduce the tax bill. And then one of the more unconventional things that we talk about is, you know, a lot of times when people retire, they don't want to spend the RSPs because they don't want to pay the tax. So they minimize, and then boom, the tax bill gets hit hard when you pass away. So I always coach people, you know, when you're retired, think about spending that money, you know, but not just with a lifestyle strategy, but also a tax strategy, taking out in bits and pieces is sometimes less painful than paying it all at once.
Okay, what about unrealized capital gains that the beneficiaries have to deal with?
That's number two, very well. So number two is the unrealized capital gain. So that can come from property. So not your personal residence, because that's tax-free, but if you have rental property, vacation property, often cottages are a big source. You know, you bought this thing for $50,000, now it's worth $500,000. Any capital gains can create a big trigger. So be mindful of those. You don't choose beneficiaries on those, but if you have anything outside of the RSPs, make sure you have a will. That's really, really critical.
So bottom line, how do you best plan your legacy now for peace of mind for the others?
Yeah, well, I mean, planning, the whole notion of planning is thinking ahead, right? So thinking ahead is really key. Plan, get help if you need help, right? Three key documents to an estate plan is not only the will, but also an enduring power of attorney and a personal directive. So if you don't have those three things, I'd highly encourage you to seek out some help, go see a lawyer or a financial advisor and start that process. If any of this resonates with you, then, or you have families that will potentially fight when you pass away, then make sure that you seek some professional help.
And then nothing to worry about.
Well, less to worry about.
Thank you, Jim. So great to hear you again.
Thank you.